Hello, and welcome everyone to the Boho Floral Dragonfly, the third in our series. We did the butterfly and the bumblebee prior to this. So welcome. I have my paint out. I have a little cafe latte. I have a deep red. It's a burgundy. It's called, it's deep burgundy. Hauser light green, yellow ochre, and some white and some black. Okay, very small palette for this one. I have my tracer. I have my graphite paper and something to trace with, and I use this little metal ballpoint stylus thing. You can use a pencil, pen, the back of a paintbrush, however you want. So I'm going to turn my camera around. There we go. And here we are. So I am just going to eyeball my tracer. Okay. I am painting on an 11 by 14. If you want to measure, you can go right ahead and measure. If you're comfortable eyeballing, that's fine too. I think for these kinds of classes, and when we're painting something for the first time, it is totally okay to eyeball it. Okay, and now I'm going to take my graphite paper. I put a little piece of tape. There we go. I put a little piece of tape on my tracer and my canvas. And that works as like a hinge. So then I can come over here and I can lift up my tracer and just slide my graphite paper underneath and then just lay down my graphite paper again. Okay. And there we go. So I'm just going to start drawing in the basic elements and shapes of my dragonfly. I'll try not to make this move. My wings got a little cut off. That's okay, because I'm just gonna loop over there, hop off, and come back. And the same thing over there where it got cut off, I can just come back. Now, sometimes I will use whatever I have available to make a circle. So I'm terrible at making circles. I will often use the bottom of the paint. I will often use the bottom or the top of my cup. I've been known to use the plate if I need a big, large circle. Whatever it is, I just pretty much grab whatever I have handy. Because although I'm not real jammed up about the placement and it being totally perfect on the canvas, I do like my circles to be somewhat round because it helps when I get to painting them that they started out round. Now I'm going to grab, do I have a Sharpie? No, I'll just use a pen. I'm going to grab a pencil and I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to go over my antenna. You can do this or not. You can also, I'm going to get this line in here. You can also get out your little liner brush with black paint and paint on your antenna first. This way, we don't have to worry about painting around them and we'll be able to see where they are after we paint our background. Because when we start painting our background, we go around the whole entire thing. But we can paint over our antenna, okay? So I'm going to get out about a 1/2 inch brush. And I always use a flat brush. It was in water because I was using it before, but you do not have to wet it first. We want our brush to have a nice flat chisel edge up top and not have bedhead. So if your brush starts to get a little wonky or full of paint, we either want to sandwich it between some paper towel and clean it off or go back into our water. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put a decent amount of paint onto my paintbrush. I like to put a little bit of pressure on my brush that spreads the bristles and helps work the paint into the paintbrush. Okay. And I'm just going to trace, and I'm only using the dark paint for now, my dark paint. You can use your tan, whatever color you're using for your background. And I'm just going to trace around the wings and then the head a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit harder to do the circles, so I'm not gonna worry about them. And now I'm gonna go back in and I'm going to mix a little white and this beige paint. I'm like pulling it out. I'm leaving some of my white nice, and I'm pulling some out over here, and I'm mixing it. I grabbed a scoop of my beige. If you can see that too. Let's see. There we go. How's that? And it's just a very light. I can make it a little darker if I want. And that's the color I'm going to use. And our background is basically going to be the same as the rest. And our background is a series of crisscrosses. So we want to go one way with our brush and then the other way with our brush, whether we're making a cross or an X, which are basically the same thing, except one is on a diagonal and one is straight. If you start to run out of paint, or if you're mixing your paint like me, you have to mix up a little bit more as you go. And I'm just going to continue around making these X's or crosses, depending on if I'm going diagonally or vertically and horizontally. And we're going to cover our entire canvas. We can do the sides as well. Okay. I don't get if you miss a spot on your canvas, that's fine, because our canvas is white and our background is white and tan. So it just starts to look like a bit of the background too. But if you want full coverage, you know, pay attention to where you're painting. And if you see a dry spot, you can hit it again. I just like to come over here and use my brush and get as close to the edge as possible. It's not going to matter if you've painted with me before. You know, painting is a process, and we will go back, and when we start adding all the details, you'll understand why these lines and your background do not have to be perfect. Because really, you know what? There is really no perfect. Mine's not perfect. Yours is not perfect. And I'm just picking up some extra paint and I'm working my way around. Now in here, I'm not going to worry about in here trying to do my crisscross. It's a little bit of a space. I can later on, when I pick up my brush, if I have a different bit of color on my brush, I can just go in there and swipe it in there just to give it a little bit of texture. Other than that, I'm not really going to worry about getting in those little crevices right there. I will say this, and what's weird, and this happened to me today too. I don't know if it's the change with the sun or what, but my painting today, I was doing this really cool pumpkin. My painting looks totally different on the screen in front of me than it looks on my work table. I don't know why that is. So I tend to look up a lot to see where it is that I need to fix, adjust, enhance, You guys know that's my word. My painting. Now that I'm down here to the circles, I'm just going around them. And now I'll go back in and pull in on my diagonal and my crisscross. Sometimes if you've noticed, you guys just see these canvases that I have, I can't wait to be done with them. But I think they have like a thicker canvas to them. So you'll see when I do my backgrounds and I'm saying a crisscross, I go twice. You might have to go twice too. I go twice in each direction because I really just have to get into, I think it's called the nape of the material here on this pulled canvas, on these canvases that I'm using. I don't know what it is, but I won't be getting this brand again. Because I feel like I have to really work it into the grooves. And again, if you need to change the direction of your surface, that's totally fine. And we're just going to continue our background. If you guys have any questions or you're struggling with something, feel free to unmute and just hop right on. I would be more than happy to see what you're doing. You don't even have to come on camera. You can just show me your hands if you want. And we can figure it out. I love for my painters to be happy and proud with their art when we're all done. As I go around, like I can see that this part over here is a little bit darker. So I'm going to come back and I'm just going to lighten that up a little bit. Oh, again, with a little bit dark. It doesn't matter if you're doing crisscrosses on the diagonal or if you're doing them on the straight up and down, whatever's more comfortable for you. I'm gonna come back in here. When I'm doing a painting where I do the background for around my design, I like to trace it. I like to, I think it helps my eye, help my hand stay where it needs to be. I'm not getting too concerned about going around my circles perfectly because our circles will be black and we can fix them when we get to that because black hides everything. We can go around and do our edge too. Depending on the project that I'm working on, when I do the edge of the canvas, and when I mean this is the edge, I will either do it exactly like, not exactly like, but exactly like the background, or I will do it to complement the background, but put a little bit of a fancy design on it, which I might do on this one. Or at least I'll show you guys on one of the edges. So I think that looks pretty good. It's almost got like a marbleized finish to it. Looks a little dark up there, so I want to go in here and lighten it up around the head. Okay, and then I'm just going to continue. I'm going to show you on this edge. I'm going to continue and I'm going to do the same thing with the edge. And I'm just doing small dabs, small little brush strokes. We don't want to overblend our paint as I go around. So if you're still working on your background, that's totally fine. I will work on my edges. And then we can move on to the next section. I'm going to do my edges to match first. And then I'm going to show you guys what I mean about just making a little bit fancy or quirky or a little bit detailed on the edge. And I like to use my the brush the short way. You could go in here and paint that like this. I like the texture of doing the edge with the same sort of brush strokes that we did the whole canvas with. Otherwise, yes, you could absolutely just load up your brush and just pull it down the edge if you wanted to. I'm off the camera a little bit, sorry. Okay, I'm almost done with that. And then back are my last side down here. I like to do the edge while I'm actually doing the painting, because sometimes we get a little bit of paint up on the front of our canvas when we do our edge. And this way we can just go back in and touch that up. Okay, so there we go. There are paintings that I do that I just do the entire background, and then I will come in and transfer my tracer on and then get painting. So it really depends on what painting I'm doing and the style of painting I'm doing. As to how I decide if I'm going to do my background first and do it the whole canvas, or if I'm going to do it around my design. Sometimes it's personal preference. Sometimes it's the design. It depends if I'm doing more florals and they're going to take up more of the canvas, then I'll just do the whole background. So it really depends. And I've gone and I've seen a few spots that were a little darker, and then a few spots that, oops, that one's really going to be darker now. I missed some canvas, so I'm just going in and I'm just crisscrossing. I also call this slip slapping, but that's it. So, and when I'm done with that, I'm gonna wash my brush. Okay. So now if you still have some white out, we're going to use a nice fresh white. So you want to put out some nice fresh white, or if you didn't touch your white because you're using tan for your background, that's fine too. I'm going to put out some nice fresh white. And I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to base coat in my dragonfly. I'm just doing the top wings and base coating in with white. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to wash my brush and I'm going to get out my green and I'm going to base coat in the bottom wings with my green. I think I used a darker green. Let me get out my other green. You have two greens. I'm putting out two greens only because I put out the light green by mistake. And I'll just use both of them. If you just have your one green, that's fine. That'll work too. Washing my brush. Okay, I'm going to go into my green. I'm going to come in here and outline. My wings and then fill it in. Go. If you have your two greens, I'll show you. On the next wing. Get this all filled in and we're going to leave it at that. Okay. I have my two greens here. I'm going to pick up dark green on one corner and the light green on the other corner. You can see I have both greens on my brush. I want my dark green to be to the outside. I'm just going to lay my brush and I'm going to slowly pull it along the edge. And you see how it spread both my greens? You can actually see the difference. And then without flipping my brush over, I go back the other way. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to pick up some of the dark green on one corner and pick up some of the light green on the other corner. I want my dark green to the outside. So I'm going to lay it down along the edge and pull. And then I'm just going to go back and forth with my nice wet paint and get it all blended in. Okay. See, I missed a little some up here. So, okay. So we pretty much have everything base coated in. Now we're going to start working on our dragonfly. I'm going to wash my brush again. I'll give you guys a few minutes to get caught up. I don't want to rush you guys. Okay. What I like and don't like about doing a dragonfly or a butterfly or something, you want their wings to match. So you pretty much, what you do on one side, you want to do on the other side. With the bumblebee, it didn't matter as much. We were just making a really cool, fun design on the white stripes of the bumblebee. So it didn't really matter. But in the, with the butterfly, even though this is abstract, I don't know, I feel like with our wings for our butterfly and our dragonfly, they should really match one side to the next. So we're going to do the same thing on one side as we do on the other side. So you guys might have traced in the basic shape of your flowers, and that would be good. I did not. So I'm going to now, I have out my entire palette. I have out some fresh white, I have the white I was using for my background. I have some black, the greens for the wings, the deep burgundy, and now the yellow ochre. And we're going to start with the deep burgundy flowers. I'm just going to pick up a little bit on the end of my round brush. You can use a flat brush for this too. I would use a smaller flat brush for this. If you only have a flat brush, I would use a narrower one more like this wide than the one I was using for the background and the wings, but that is totally up to you. If you have a round brush like this, this will work. I have another round brush. Where is it? I had a smaller round brush somewhere. I can't find it. Sorry. But something like this would work. Okay. So I'm going to just sketch in where my flowers are. You might already have this. Okay. If you outlined when you did your tracer. So I'm just picking up and I'm going in here and I'm just doing the wiggly basic shapes for my 4 burgundy flowers. Okay, then I'm going to move back into the burgundy and I'm going to, with the same brush, come over here and scoop up some white. So now you can see I have white and burgundy on my brush. And I'm just going to start making comma strokes. Okay. Pick up a little bit more burgundy, pick up a little bit more white, and I'm layering in some comma strokes. Into the space to make our flower. And this is not a whole flower, so presumably we would have an entire flower, right? And we would be doing our comma strokes and working our way around the flower. And we work our way in. We're picking up burgundy and white, and we work our way into the center of the flower. Like that, okay? But for this flower, and how we're doing it here, let me show you. We have cut our flower into quarters. So technically this part here is this quadrant, and this part here is this quadrant of the same flower. And that gives you a little bit more of a visual, because you might be saying that doesn't look like a flower. No, it's a partial flower because the whole flower is in the background and this is just a piece of it. And based on the same thing over here and over here, that would be the top of it. Okay, so let me just put that to the side. And we're gonna do the same thing over here. I picked up some burgundy and we're just making little comma strokes and filling in our section here. With our comma strokes. If you think your flower is too pink, add some white. If you think your flower is too white, add some more burgundy. It's totally up to you. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to continue picking up the burgundy and the white on my brush. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start working on these. I'm just making little comma strokes, working into the center of the flower. Sometimes I change direction. I want to fill in a little bit of this bottom down here. But you just want to make little comma apostrophe strokes in there for our flower. Again, I'm going to pick up some burgundy and some white over here and do the same thing on this side. Comma, comma, comma. I want a little bit more burgundy in this one. So I'm just going to add in there like that. And there we have our burgundy flowers, and I'm going to wash my brush. Nice, give it a nice squeeze with the paper towel. And so I hope this helped you explain or visualize a little bit. I call these flowers, but maybe they don't look like flowers, but this is why. This is how you have to look at it. It's a partial on this side and a partial on that side. I love how it all starts to come together, you guys. It's like magic. Then I'm going to go into my yellow. Get a decent amount on my round brush. And again, I didn't put my flower on here. So I'm just going to basically sketch it in approximately where I need it to be. Okay. And then the same thing, if you need fresh white, I'm going to go on this side of my pile. I'm going to pick up some yellow and I'm going to pick up some white. It's like a scooping thing. Now I have yellow and white on my brush. And I'm going to start in here with his head. And I'm going to just start adding in comma strokes and work towards the middle. I'm going to go back and I'm going to scoop yellow, scoop white, and add in these comma strokes. And these strokes, like I said, they don't have to go the same way. Some can go clockwise, some can go counterclockwise. If you feel like you picked up too much of one color, go back in and pick up the other color. If you feel like your entire flower is becoming very monochrome, and when I say monochrome, I mean one color, whether it's too much yellow or too much white, move on to another flower, and then we'll come back, because you'll be easier if you keep working it and working it. You're just going to get a blend. Oh, need some more white there. And if you want to add either color, we want to wait for it to dry, and then we can go back in and add some nice white or some nice burgundy or some nice yellow, depending on which flower we're talking about. Because sometimes we just keep brushing and brushing, and next thing you know, our flower is completely one color. I've done it. So again, I have some yellow and some white on my brush, and I'm coming in here and I'm pulling in some comma strokes. Some go clockwise and some go counterclockwise, and they overlap one another. I have to get some more white. There we go. Okay. Okay. This one here, I think needs a little white, but I'm gonna let it dry a little bit. So I'm gonna just rinse my brush. You guys can work on your flowers. I'm gonna rinse my brush a little bit. And when I come back, let me show you. I'm gonna turn my camera around so you guys can see. Sometimes it's easier. So we have pretty much everything base coated in. This flower, this yellow flower is a little too gold for me. I want to add some white. But if I keep adding in white now, it's just gonna blend and blend and blend. So I'm gonna let that set up a little bit and dry a little bit, and I will come back to that one. Other than that, we have our background. I can still see my antenna, thank goodness. We did, although you can't see, we base coated this white, and we base coated our leaves with the dark green with a little bit of the light green mixed in. And now we will go to our little leaves. If you have your phone, if you're not watching on your phone and you have your phone and you'd like to take a screenshot, feel free. To help you like through the steps. But don't forget, you guys, everyone gets the video. So as soon as it converts and I download it and I upload it, I will email it. Okay. Okay. All right, give you guys a couple more minutes to get your flowers all set. This here. See, I missed a little spot up in here in this corner. I just have to fill in a little bit. That's better. Our yellow flowers are mostly whole, so they're a little bit easier to visualize. You can see what they look like, where the center is going to go. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my green. I'm using the round brush, or you can use a liner brush if you feel more comfortable with it. Just going to get out a little bit. And I'm going to come in here. And I'm going to draw in my leaves. You may have already traced yours in, and that's okay. I'm going to add mine in as I work my way around. And these are just kind of simple leaves. Again, they're just curved lines, one going one way and one going the other way. If we were going to draw the whole leaf, we would take it and we'd go one way and the other way, and then we would fill it in. Obviously, it would then take some little details to make the veins and whatnot, but it's just a basic leaf shape. It's parentheses one way, close them the other way, and then fill it in, which is what I'm going to do now. I still have both of my greens, and I'm just doing little strokes and filling in my leaves with my green. I feel like when you do these little tiny baby strokes, it gives your leaf more texture. Instead of one big, like if I was using a bigger rounder brush or a big flat brush, and I just did one swoop. This way, if we're doing these little tiny strokes, it gives our leaf a little bit more texture. And I'm pulling back towards the base of the stem, base of the leaf every time I do a leaf. So I'm starting up with the point and I'm pulling my brush back and just doing these little dabs to fill in. Don't worry about your lines and your outlines and your the big wing leaf being perfect, because you know when we come back in, or maybe you don't know, but when we come back in and we do our outlining, it will all come together and you won't even see any of that. So I'm just little dabs, pulling from the point down to where the base of my stem would be. Oh my God, you guys, look how cool it's coming. Isn't it funny how I switch back and forth from teacher voice to excited painter voice every time? Yeah. Then I'm just going to pick up a little bit of green and I'm just adding in with the same round brush, just some texture in here on our wings. Now this isn't as important. I mean, maybe it is to you. I'm not going to go on this side and do the exact same thing with the dots that I did on that side. I don't think that really matters. If it matters to you, feel free. It's your painting. You can do one dot at a time and go back and forth. That's totally up to you. I don't feel the need, and I'm just filling in a little bit with dabbing. And we don't even want them to be flat or round or have nice texture. Nope. Well, we want them to have nice texture. They don't have to have the same shape. Okay. It's just a little random dotting with our green on the end of our line round brush. well, you guys are catching up or maybe not catching up. I'm going to add a little bit more white to these yellow flowers. I'm just picking up a little bit of white and I'm doing the same thing, some comma strokes in here. I want them to brighten up a little bit. There we go. And that is it. I'm going to add a little bit of white to these two here. I think I added a little too much white to this one. See, it's good. It's just paint, you guys. There we go. Okay. Alrighty then. Now you can go back to your flat brush or you can stick with your round brush. It's up to you. And I'm going to go into my black and we're going to start working on his body. Okay. I'm twirling my round brush like I would a liner brush. So we have a nice point on there. I'm going to come in and I'm going to outline his body and fill it in. Okay. And again, I'm going to twirl in here, make a nice point. And I'm going to come in here. And when I trace my circle, I don't know if you guys saw that, our brush does not move like a pen or a pencil. So when we're lettering or doing circles, we have to go both ways. So I pick up paint, I do half my circle one way, and then I come over and I do half my circle the other way. Okay, you can't change directions with the flexible brush like you would with a pen or a pencil or a marker. The brush marker, I think just for the heck of it, I'm going to add a little one at the bottom. Okay, and now again, I'm just going to fill in. This way I did the black outline. My eye is being controlled. By that. Doesn't mean I won't go out of the line, because you know I will and could. It just helps. It helps to keep the paint where I need it to be. And I just feel like it is more efficient. And you can do one at a time, or you can outline them all and then come back the way I did. Mine got a little wonky, didn't they? You know what, though? I'm going to leave them because, well, I'm not going to leave this one. I want this one to be a little bit rounder. That is all I'm going to do. Because if I start, I mean, they were circles. If I start playing with them, this is what happens, y'all. I'll start to fix one side, then I'll need to fix the other side, then I'll need to fix the other side. And before you know it, the body segments of my dragonfly will be this big. They'll just grow and grow and grow and grow. So I'm okay with leaving them a little bit wonky. I'll deal with it. It's fine. Okay. Okay. If I was so inclined and I was putting this in an art show, I would probably paint over it or paint more background before I started allowing my round parts of the body like that to grow. That's just a little tip, you guys, because that's what happens. Okay, now I wash that brush. Now I'm going to get out my liner brush. There it is, my favorite liner brush. Okay. And we're going to stay with our black. Give you guys a few minutes, maybe still working on your bodies, on your circles and stuff. Okay, we get out my liner brush. I'm going to stick with my white. And again, when we use our liner brush, we want to roll it between our thumb and our forefinger. And we want to get a point. If your paint gets a little too thick now, just put the very tip of your brush into some water and then come over here and thin your paint a little bit. Mine is still okay for now, but depending on how hot we have it or how cold we have it in our homes, it could make a difference. Okay, I'm going to start doing some outlining. If you can't do one long stroke like that, feel free, more paint, feel free to do little strokes. Feel free to just brush along a little bit at a time. You can only do a ½ inch or an inch. That's totally fine. And just keep picking up paint until your line meets the other side. It does take a little bit of practice to be able to come in here and just do one continuous stroke. Plus, then you'll run out of paint too. So if you can't do that and you need a little bit more practice, feel free to do it like this, where you just keep lifting your brush and working your way around. You come over here, bring this side into there. Okay. And we're going to do that for each of the segments of our wings. Okay. Now you see I turned mine all the way upside down. So I didn't want to put my hand in my black paint from my body. So I turned my canvas completely upside down. If your line gets a little too thick, maybe your brush is getting a little too yucky, just wipe off the paint with the paper towel and go back into some fresh paint, twirl it again, and get yourself a nice point. Okay. And then we're going to do this other side. And again, this is one of the reasons I said you didn't have to worry about if you weren't perfect with your background. Because when we come in here and we add in these outlines, it hides that, and it really makes our wings pop. Pop, pop. Okay. Do the same thing around the head. And again, just like with the other brush, when I do my head, I'm going to go one way. I'm going to pick up some more paint. I'm going to come back in here. And I'm going to go the other way. You can tell when your brush doesn't want to move that way anymore. Then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put a little, oh, careful, a little dot. And then I'm going to add my antenna. I'm going to add a little dot, and that just means I put a little bit more pressure to my brush. And then I do the other antenna. There we go. Okay. This is the final stage of our painting where it all really just starts to come together. And when you start adding all these details, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Okay. We're going to go in here. We're going to start with our flowers. And we're going to use our liner brush. And we're just going to add a few little dots in here in what theoretically is the center of our flowers. Okay, that's why these are in the corners and those are down below. And then up here, it would be right in the center. This is basically a whole flower. And with these, it's more or less about 2/3 of a flower. So our center would be there. So we outlined all 4 sections of our wings. Then we did the head part. Put a little dot for this antenna and then pulled in his antenna. And then we did little fine dots with our black in the center of each of our 6 flowers or partial flowers, however you want to think of it. Okay, well, we have our black. I'm just going to go around the wings. These little dashes give the illusion of movement. And that's it, just a few of them. And then I want to add, if you don't want to add this, first you could look at mine and watch me. I'm going to just add a little bit of black to the outside of my flowers. Just a little bit, very light, like that. If you think you have too much of a heavy hand and you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Or if you don't want to do that because you don't like the way it looks, you don't have to. Your art, your way. I just add a little bit of black to the outside of my flowers. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to outline just one side of each of my leaves. And it turns out it's more or less the underside of the leaves where it would be shadowed. And there we go. So again, I did the 4 sections of the wings. I did the head. I did the antenna. I added the centers to my 6 flowers. I added a little bit of black to the outside petals of my flowers. And then I just added a little black underneath each one of my little wings. And I'm going to go to my white. And the same thing, if your white is a little thick, just put the tip of your brush in some water and thin out some of your white on the side. And then I'm going to twirl it, and get a nice point. We don't want our paint to be so thin that if we do this, it drops off the edge. But we want it to be able to move when we paint. Okay. Okay. All right, the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to put a little bit more pressure than I would. And I'm going to make these, got a little bit of fuzz on there. These little lines on his body. They have a little bit of a curve. Okay. Then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put a little apostrophe, backwards apostrophe, comma stroke down each section of his body. Okay, add a little bit of highlight to that. Then I want to come over here and just soften up this edge a little bit. And each time I go back to a little bit more paint. Then I want to go over the black just a little bit. Not completely, almost like we did the black with the little dash lines. But this time we're not even making it consecutive. We just want to add a little bit of highlight around the wings where we had the black outline. So we're doing our dash technique, but we're picking up the brush in between. Okay? They don't have to be solid lines. I do the same thing around part of his head, her head. I'm going to add a little bit of a swishy stem inside each leaf. And that is, I'm just taking my liner brush. I'm applying very, very light pressure and a little swish. I'm starting at the fatter part of the leaf, working my way to the point, and it's just a little swoosh. If you can get it to curve and not be straight, that's even better, but that does take practice. So if yours are a little straighter, that's fine. Just putting that in there like that. Okay. Then I'll show you why I'm doing this. We're going to add the viney veins in our bottom leaf wings. So I got out the white. I did a little bit of a heavy kind of stroke on this part of the body. Then I went in and I put little backwards commas or apostrophes in each of the segment of the body. I lightened up. Oh, I guess get paint on there. Yeah, I'll go over that with black. I lightened up my black line by doing little dashes of white around it. I did the same thing around his head portion. And then I added a little white stroke for the inside stem of our leaves. Okay, and now I have my painting vertically, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just pull in a curvy line. Okay, and then we're just going to start adding little V's off of it. V's, Y's, however you want to think of it. We want them to be thin and they connect and they go off of one another. Like here, I have a little bit too much empty space. So I'm gonna get a little bit more paint. And I'm going to add a little more in there. And you can make this as full or as thin as you like. Those even crossed over. They almost look like branches of a tree. And I guess that's because technically leaves do grow from trees, and they really do. They have that same structure to them. So I'm going to turn mine around. And again, if you're concerned, I know I said how we want our main elements to copy each other from left to right because wings do that. I think for this, we don't have to worry about that so much. Okay, so I just start out with one curvy line, and then I'm going to start branching off into V's or Y's, however you want to think of them. If you have your painting the other way, like this, and you think it's easier, however you want to do it. Sometimes I like to pull. I feel like I have a lighter touch, and it's just thin, squiggly lines that make a V. And they keep branching off each other. Sometimes they can overlap, and sometimes they don't. Okay. Oh, I think I need one more in here. And like I said, you could do as many, you can fill this in as much or as little as you want. Okay, when you guys are finishing up, I'm just going to show you one of the techniques. I need a smaller flat brush. This one I'll use. I was talking before about how sometimes I like to do my edges a little different, whimsy, unique, artsy. I don't know the word, but whatever. So I'll show you guys. It's very simple. I keep out the palette that I started with, and I'm going to do it on the short edge, but you guys can look up and down. You guys can keep painting. I got to get a good angle for this though. Let me see. There we go. That'll work, I think. Yes. Okay. So I have my paints out and I have the same paint palette. You know, it's all my paints that we have out that we used. And I'm going to start with the burgundy. And this is about a 1/2 inch wide brush. And I'm just going to eyeball it. So I'm taking the middle. So I have this corner and this corner. You can't see the one corner, but I'm going in the middle. Basically, and I'm going to put a little dash there. And then I'm going to put a dash on either end. So now I have 3 dashes. Okay. You can only see this section. Get a little bit more paint. Now I'm going to split this part in half. Then I'm going to split this part in half. Okay. So that's what we have going so far. Now I think I'm going to change my color. I'm going to pick up some of the green. Now I'm going to take the green and I'm going to split each red section. I'm going to take my green and I'm going to put that in between each of these reds. Okay. And this can be 1 color, 2 color, no color. You could have left it the way it was. I'm just playing and I'm just showing you some of the things you can do. Now I'm going to go into my yellow. And the difference with my yellow now, I'm still going to use the same little 1/2 inch brush, but now I'm going to use it on the chisel edge. And I'm just going to go in here and apply a little pressure. And I'm just going to add these little yellow lines in between each segment. And there we go. And so that is, if I wanted to dress up the side of my canvas a little bit. Okay, there is the side. So it's up to you. It looks pretty when it's on the wall. We use the same palette family. You could use all the colors. You could use 1 color. Whatever you want to do it. You can be as creative as you want on the border, or you can leave it. It's totally up to you. But anyway, so there we go. I hope you enjoyed the butterfly lesson for tonight. I love sharing art from my heart, and thank you again.
Thank you.